The following program is powered by Ride the Wave Media.
You are now listening to The Restored Wife.
Welcome to the podcast where we discover the relationship preventative medicine you didn't know you needed and help you create the relationship and life you dreamed of when you first said yes to your husband. I'm Brenda Kradolfer, a certified Laura Doyle relationship coach. Are you ready to chat about relationships today? Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Brenda. Yay. Yes, you said that kind of loaded, but yes, I'm ready. I'm excited. I'm on board.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad that you're here with me today. We're going to just be chatting. We're going to be talking about how, where our relationships were, where they are now, what changed, how we found the stuff that we use today. And yeah, so just first tell me a little bit about you. Stephanie.
All right, well, yeah, I have been out in Colorado for over 20 years now, and I love being outside. I'm an outdoorsy person, and I met my husband when I was still in college, and we just fell in love adventuring together. We would be watching a movie on Saturday night and eating Tony's pizza, the frozen pizzas, and be looking at a guidebook and be like, oh, let's go camping here. And we would leave at 10 o'clock at night. Those type of, just so carefree and so fun. And yeah, we've been together for 18 years and we've been married for 13. And a big part of our relationship, we had a fertility journey for about 3 years. We got married, and right away I was like, I want to start a family. And it took us a while. And I think what a big part of the skills and getting into relationship coaching for me was just, I did that. If this happens, then I'll be happy. I did the if and then game a lot. And so I had all my eggs in that one basket to have babies. And we were fortunate. We had twins and they were happy and healthy. And I thought, yeah, I finally I got it, but I was miserable. And I know I'm going to blow your mind right now. It did not help the marriage. I finally got what I wanted, but then, my marriage was just falling apart and I didn't know what to do and felt really lost and started to look for some help, for some support.
Yeah. Okay. I loved what you called the if-then trap or the if-then game.
Yeah.
I can so relate to that. Yeah. Just thinking now when I look back, it's okay. I had everything that I wanted and I was totally unhappy. It was what's the next thing? Which I still work through today. I love buying houses. So I think that's fun. And I think it just distracts me and it gives me something to really focus all my attention on. But it's also like a crutch. I think if I have this, if it all looks a certain way, then I can relax. Mm-hmm. And I've actually found partly to be true, when I'm fulfilling on my own desires and going after things that I really, really want, or our living room, we redid our living room and it feels a lot better because it's finally a little bit more what I want. But anyway, just totally relate to that. And yeah, hearing your journey go from super fun, spontaneous relationship with your husband or, boyfriend, right? Mm-hmm. It was I love the Tony's pizza and just you're free, right?
Yeah.
We can just do whatever we want. And there's nobody that's going to stop us, we're unstoppable. Yeah. And then to come into this place where something is getting in the way of the thing you want to do, you can't, you could just pick up and go hiking. It was kind of crazy, or go on a trip or an adventure. But then I hear that you were in this fertility journey where you wanted something and it wasn't happening. Mm-hmm. And just how painful that must have been. And then to have it all kind of work out, but then to look back and think, well, yeah, but now my marriage is in shambles, or I got this thing at the expense of my marriage.
Yeah. That's a really good way of putting it. I got this at the expense of my marriage because I didn't make my marriage a priority. And yeah, it was a sad time. It was a really lonely time too. Looking
Yeah.
back on it, I had these twins and I was nursing them and I had these goals. There were so many shoulds on my vision too of how this should look.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was like, I'm going to nurse my kids for a year. And that was like a blur doing that, just
Yeah.
putting that pressure on myself. And just, there was some heartbreak in there. There was definitely, I remember during our fertility journey, I remember we were doing inseminations, the IUIs. And during the fifth one, you're such a hostage in that situation. I just remember being on the hospital bed, like exposed in a, terrible gown,
Mm-hmm.
and my husband just sitting next to me. And there's a point where the doctor, it's very quick procedure, but he will prop up the bed so your feet are up in the air and your head is tipped backwards and you're using everything you can to get pregnant, right? Use the gravity,
Right. Oh my God.
And so I was doing that and I just had this moment of feeling so helpless and so out of control and exhausted. And I just started crying. And for so long, I was like, I'll just pull up my bootstraps. I'll keep pushing through. It's going to be fine. And finally, like when those floodgates opened, I couldn't close them. And my husband was right there. And he just told me, Brenda, he was like, Steph, be quiet. Shh. Other people are going to hear you in the waiting room. We're in this, a fertility clinic. And that was the first big heartbreak in our relationship where I was just like, who is this guy? I married the wrong person. I married Peter Pan. He's never going to grow up. And this was, is this the right choice to even want to have a baby with this guy? It was really like all the question marks were going off, all the doubt. And fifth time was a charm, though. We got pregnant.
Was it this time? Was it this time you're describing?
It was this time. We, left that fertility clinic after I remember just counting the stripes on my socks with my feet tipped up on that bed because my husband wasn't helping me calm down. And I was like, all right, I was wearing these brown Smartwool socks with orange, blue, and tan stripes. Like I can see it still, all different widths. And yeah, like I just see it. And by the time I calmed down and we had the green light to leave the clinic, I got in my car and my husband got in his car and we just went separate directions. I checked into a hotel room that night.
Oh, Stephanie, so heartbreaking.
Right? It was just, I have the chills talking about it because I just go right back to it. Just that feeling of like, just doubt and fear and heartbreak.
Yeah. Oh man, even when you said it, like when he was like, Steph, calm down, I was like, who is this guy? Like even I'm thinking that, right? Oh, but I can so relate to it at the same time. It's like, it's every time my husband opened his mouth, like it was like, who is this guy? And like, where does he come off? And what? It's like bewildering. But really interesting though, that in that moment that you like really just broke down.
Yeah.
That was the time that it all worked. Have you ever thought about that?
I've thought not exactly like that. And I kind of love that because I believe, we're meant to be together. And I always wanted to be with him. Even when we were going through like these hard times and there was a couple more heartbreaks, I never had 2 feet out. Maybe I was on the fence, but I never packed the bags. I was never, there was like, even when I threatened divorce, Brenda, and my husband came in and, we would talk about getting divorced and the kids. And it was never realistic to me. It was a threat. And it was kind of like that, man, like a ninja throwing star, like something I would keep in my back pocket as a weapon that if our fight got to that point, I'd be like, wow, and throw out that divorce weapon. And it was just tough for a while.
Yeah. So was it kind of like you knew that if you threw out the divorce word, maybe he would like shape up or say the right thing?
Well, I attempted that, right? As sort of this ultimatum. But really what would happen is I would throw out that divorce, that weapon, and he would just put his hands up in the air and be like, I'm done. Like it would be kind of like the end of the fight. And there were times too where we'd be fighting in the kitchen, and the kids are like clipped in their high chairs around the island, and we'd be fighting, and I'd be the dignified one that would be like, we can't fight in front of the kids, and like somehow I was like the good one in that. And I mean, looking back, I'm going to share everything with you, but I'm cringing inside. I'm totally cringing.
Yeah. Oh, I can so relate to that. If I'm not careful, if I go back to certain things, I will start dwelling on them and it'll just suck me back into it if I'm not careful. And yeah, it's painful to go back to that place where things were like just on the rocks, I guess it's such a simple way of saying things, but it feels awful. And it's like, when is this going to end, or is this ever going to change? I feel like.
Yeah, when you say that too, the thing that was really confusing in my marriage is that we had really good times too. It was like a roller coaster, right? Like you said, when's this going to end? And that's what it felt like. It felt like a ride I was on, because we would have great times together, and then it would just go downhill, and it'd be like, abort. And so it was just confusing. I didn't know. When I talk to my mentors, when I talk to, people that have been in relationships for 30 years, and even my big sister and stuff, I remember even the first year of marriage, people being like, marriage is hard work. Marriage takes two. It's communication. And I was like, why do people do this then? What's the deal? Like, I married my adventure partner. I married this guy I was so in love with. And like, why are things changing? So just that roller coaster ride, man, it could be fun, but it was brutal when it came down.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I can so relate to that too, that like we had really good times also. There were times when we're like, we're the coolest couple in this room. Look at everybody. They all look lame. They're like sitting far apart, and we're, we're laughing with each other and having a good time, and then, the next day, mine is always like, he'd come home from work and I'm exhausted from these two kids and like no social interaction, right? Now I'm like, okay, maybe I could have done something differently, but I just felt trapped. I didn't know. I really put it all on him. It's his responsibility to make sure that I have the social interaction I need for the day, those kind of things. But so it was like those kind of situations I feel can drag out for a really long time too, because it's like, all right, this day's, maybe this day will be better, or I don't know, you just get in a flow too. You get trapped on the ride, maybe.
Yeah. When you talk about your husband coming home from work, I can really relate to that too as a stay-at-home mom. And my husband, what happened for us was like, my husband would come home and he would idle in the driveway. And at our old house, like I could see his headlights. And, then he would come into our house and I would like meet him at the door and, like, what's going on? And kind of have that, did you bring me flowers, or like you do anything nice for me while I'm like slaving away? I had some expectations on him. But what happened, I would just see his headlights and he eventually would come in the house. But what started happening was he would go into the workshop after getting home. He'd turn off the truck and he would go into his workshop. And we had a fridge in there, and maybe he'd have a couple beers. Maybe he would change the tube on a tire for biking, and then he would stop at a bar or a restaurant or at a friend's house on the way home. And he would my thought process was like, okay, he doesn't want to come home, so maybe I can make things easier at home for him when he gets home. Like, I'll start doing more around the house. Like, even I was taking care of those kids and like making dinners and cleaning the home. But I was like, I can stay in the house. I can mow the lawn. When I would see he'd have a hole in his Keen hiking boots, I'd be like, oh, I'll just order a new pair for him. I know he likes this brand. So I took over like just doing everything. And I had no idea I was pushing him further and further away. Like the more helpful I was, the more our relationship just turned into like kind of that smothering mother thing, which I had no idea I was doing. My intentions were so good.
Right? Yeah. Making it easier for him. Come home, man.
Yeah. Drink your beer in the house.
Yeah, I'm here. Let's hang out.
I know this is getting on his page a little bit right now, but I wasn't that fun to come home to, Brenda. Like I wasn't like happy. I wasn't, I hadn't done anything during the day, like fun to tell him about. I wasn't bringing anything besides here's my chore list and, here's what I've accomplished. You should love me for what I'm doing.
Yes. Yes. Of course you should, right?
Yeah. So I'm doing everything.
Yeah. So buying him new boots, doing the fix it stuff around the house, mowing the lawn, adding more onto your to-do list while you're like nursing these babies and tending to them full time, right? To their every beck and call, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Especially as a new mom. That didn't make you happier, I'm sensing.
No, I mean, I think I was happy being a mom, and I knew that was something in my core. Like I was meant to be a mother, and I'm so grateful that I am. I just had this picture of what it should look like, and it was not matching up.
Yeah. Yeah. So relatable. Isn't that funny? Like I've been thinking about that a lot. Like my kids are past this stage. Like my youngest is 7. And so we've moved on from the toddler baby phase. But I can look back and honestly say that was my favorite time. I loved having a baby. I loved having toddlers. They were adorable. And yes, I'm not in it anymore. So it's easy to forget about, the hard parts.
Right.
But I think it was that I was adding all this other stuff on and also just had all these expectations about it, around it, which I think you did a really good job describing too. Like if I just do more here. And it's funny too, because there were things that I would do that brought me a lot of joy. Sometimes a home improvement project, I would just shut the kids off, but I'm going to put trim around my windows because that sounds fun to me. And I just let everything else go, like I didn't worry about the laundry and the stuff. And I was like happy. And like my husband would come home and I would be like in the middle of my project and I'd be proud of myself for what I had done. And he would praise what I was doing. Yeah. And so I took a lot from that. But then I also had this like secret resentment that like he wasn't the handyman around the house, that he, didn't like to do these jobs, that I always had to, teach him how to do things. That was kind of our dynamic. Okay. And so then I even got lost once I started practicing the skills we kind of mentioned at one point in this. It was like I stopped doing everything again, but really everything. Like I stopped housework and things that actually did bring me joy, but that I didn't know were even a source of joy because they were tied up in the resentment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So tell me so you said kind of towards the end of the snippet of your story that you shared that, you finally decided like something's got to give. And you talked to people, you talked to your relationship mentors who just kind of said marriage is hard work. And I remember hearing like all the conventional marriage advice, and I just thought it sounded lame. And I was like, I don't think it has to be that way. That was kind of my thing. I was like, I think we're going to be different. And we were to some extent, like we were in some ways, but then other things were like, we knew communication was important, but I sucked at communication. Like most women are kind of supposed to be good at communicating. Like I just shoved it all down and I didn't even know what I was feeling. And I would just be angry so fast, but I didn't want to blow up at my husband. I didn't have that in me. I just would cram it down and hate myself somehow.
Gosh, that's so painful.
So, yeah. It was, but it's all stemming from the same source, right? Yeah. Like we're all feeling that pain. We're all having these expectations that how things are going to be. And then, it doesn't work out that way. So then it's, well, what do I do now? Yeah. So what did you do? What did you do differently? Or what did you find in your quest? Or how did you find it?
Well, everything you just said just gave me the chills because I'm like, yes, so nice to talk to somebody who just relates. And I think for me, what happened, it was after our kid's 2nd birthday, right? Like I had made cupcakes that are pink and blue for my daughter and my son. And I got the perfect pictures, Brenda. I had the pink frosting on my daughter's nose and like blue cupcake on my son's face. Like I did it, like gold star for me. I just crushed that. And I cleaned up everything in the kitchen and I was sitting on this bed and I was like, all right, I've done it. And my husband walked in the room and was like, do you want a divorce? Will that make you happy? And I was like, what the F? What? I was like, I just did everything,
Yeah.
and I was so confused. And then I thought to myself and was like, well, I'm like doing everything myself anyway. And would it be that different? And it took about 2 days for it to sink in. They're like, no, I really didn't want a divorce. And I started looking online and I started reading some different books like Love Languages and Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. And, my mindset was just really negative at the time. So when I read those books, I even read like the birth order book. And I was like, this is why we don't work. It didn't give me hope. It made me real. I was like, we communicate differently. We show our love differently. This is why we're not working. And so I was kind of like, do I throw in the towel? And it took, I think I had that moment of getting complacent. Maybe this is just the way it's going to be. And then a girlfriend of mine came over and I remember like I was making a fresh pot of coffee and we were going to do some like male bashing. That's what we did. Like she came over and we were just like, my husband this, my husband that. We'd walk our kids together. And she told me, she was like, Steph, I found this book. I listened to it on Audible and this is really different. And I think you should check it out. And she told me about the empowered wife. And so I listened to it that weekend and that had a different approach. This had a very different feeling than anything that I'd read. And girl, I read some books. I was trying to keep my word. Like, I can fix this. Like, I'm a fixer.
Yes.
And this just there was so much emphasis on the accountability, on my accountability and what I can change just from my side without trying to fix I really put the emphasis on me. And when I was listening to this book, I was like, this woman has been in my house. Like all the negative examples, I was like, she knows everything, this Laura Doyle. And I just remember feeling really validated and feeling, these times, like my whole relationship, I have this metaphor of just walking up a mountain, hiking a mountain with my husband. And like, he stopped to tie his shoe and I never even noticed. I just kept going until I was on like the top of a cliff, by myself and alone. And this book just made me realize like I wasn't alone. And these issues that I was having were not like isolated incidents of, just feeling very supported and hopeful. And the first thing, so kind of like what you were saying before, my first thing was like, well, I'm going to prove her wrong. I'm going to like, the skills she got, like I felt a connection there, but I was so resistant. And like I was saying with the other books, I was just so negative that I was like, I've got nothing to lose, so I'll try this. But the intimacy skills did not have me at hello necessarily.
It sound like wacky. Like you're like, okay, she gets me. And then you start reading like what she suggests and you're like,
like I was critical, but there was just enough of a different perspective on like me being able to change things because I'm capable of anything. I believe that I can do almost anything, but I can't do everything. So I was like, why not give this a shot? It's something different. And so after I listened to that book, I came back and like my personality, I'm like, I want the clip notes. I want the cheat phrases. Like let's wrap it up. Yeah. And so I did. I came back and it was the beginning of November. And my husband, we were in the kitchen. The kids are clipped into their high chairs. And my husband was like, well, what are we going to do for the holidays? Are we going to your parents' house? Are we going to go to my parents' house? Are we hosting here? And that's when I had this opportunity to say a cheat phrase, and I was so nervous, but all I said was I looked at my husband and was like, whatever you think. And he looked at me suspiciously and then walked right into our sliding glass door. Bam. Like he walked right into nobody was hurt in like the process of using the skills. He was okay. But that's legitimately what happened. It was such a different response from that he walked right into the door and was,
oh my God.
And it was undeniable that this was having a different effect. And it was different for my husband, the response that he got. But for me, I felt 1,000,000 pounds lighter. I was like, oh, I didn't realize I don't want to be in charge of this. Like, I don't have to do this. I was taking on all this unnecessary just burden, and I was like, either way, like any way we do this, it's going to be fine. And I trust my husband, but whatever you think. And then I didn't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
So that was
you really
my
did
first.
it sounds like you were just all in at that point. I'm just going to try this. There were no expectations. Almost. It sounds like you're just like, let's see what happens if I do this.
Yeah, that's also another thing that I really liked about the skills. And I still to this day experimenting with what works and what doesn't work, and just having an open mind. And there's a huge emphasis on me being the expert in my life and knowing what's a stretch and what's a tear and, things. And I'm constantly changing and evolving. So I have to check in with myself a lot.
Yeah. Well, I love that this image with the kids strapped in the high chairs, because you said that before earlier. This is like our battleground. The kids are strapped in. We're going to have an adult conversation because the kids are semi taken care
Contained.
of. Contained. Yeah, that's like another issue, right? Too, like when the kids aren't contained. But I love, you went from this one scenario where the kids are in there, and I can't even remember. Tell me again what happened in the previous story. What did he say? That like.
Oh, I don't even remember now. The first
that thing that happened, and and now you're okay. So now you've done this work, you've read all these books, and then you read this book, which is different, and now you're trying something different. You're just letting go, letting go of all that responsibility in one little phrase, and just saying whatever you think, almost like I'm done, but like in a different way. And then he walked smack into the sliding glass door, which I also love. It's almost like he had his own wake up call. It's like he had to walk into that door, and nothing it wasn't anything you did, right? You didn't I loved what you said. No people were hurt in the usage of skills, but like he did that on his own. He walked straight into that door. But it's funny because it's like, it's a different response, right? It's normally would he have engaged? Like you would have said, oh, well, maybe we'll go to my parents. And then there would have been like a back and forth.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Maybe at some point.
Yeah. There would have been a big conversation about it, and it would have gotten, I can't say 100%, but like from the past couple of years, I would make the decision, and then something would come up and something would change, and I would get upset. And, and it was all the planning though, too. This has been a huge shift in my relationship, is just planning, traveling. And I get so anxious. We use the term needless emotional turmoil. I get so anxious around planning things. And as a mother, packing everything. Classic example, we're going to the beach on vacation. Everything is perfect for the kids. Mom forgets her bathing suit.
Right? It's like everything is wrong at that point, right?
Yes. Yes. Like plane is going down again, aboard.
Yes.
And so there was another skill that I used was honoring my limits, of saying I can't. And, once that was the first step in relinquishing control and kind of changing the dance around travel plans, was whatever you think. And I don't even remember what we did that year, but we spent time with our family and it was fine. And even right now we're making plans. I'm not making plans. My husband's making plans for spring break right now. And we're going camping in southern New Mexico, and we're going to Arizona, and we're doing this road trip. And this morning, I booked this campsite, and we're going to these caverns, and I booked a tour, and I was like, sounds great.
Nice.
That's it. I
love it.
Sounds great. And I'm so grateful for you doing all this, like expressing gratitude for that too, because I totally trust him and I don't want to do it.
Okay, so I'm loving this, and I'm hearing you, say I don't even have to do it anymore. Like my husband is planning, and I'm just imagining women listening to this podcast like starting to hyperventilate at the idea of not controlling all this stuff, not like doing all the things, and not preparing the snack bags and the making sure we have enough diapers, all that stuff. So what would you say to that?
I would say, okay, so one of the first times after a couple years ago, the first time my husband was booking flights for traveling, I was
Mm-hmm.
like, you've got this, babe. Thank you for doing this. We like zigzagged across the country, Brenda. I pulled a Kathy Murray, she got the house, sight and scene, whatever. Her husband bought that for her.
Uh-huh.
I didn't even look at the plane tickets. I didn't look at the itinerary. I was like, okay, we've got to be in Albuquerque to fly out this date. Great.
Uh-huh.
And it was okay getting there. We had 2 or 3 different planes we were on, but the way home, I was like, why are we going, like, why are we going to Chicago and then North Carolina and then Denver? And then, we just
Yeah.
zigzagged all over the place. And, even on the best day, traveling is challenging, but
Yeah.
like, as much as, because you kind of feel like a hostage, but it wasn't my burden. Like it wasn't, I
Yeah.
just was able to laugh and be like, well, this is an adventure. Let's go get some extra bags of chips,
Yeah.
And like, it wasn't, if it had been me, Brenda, that had done that, I would have beat myself up and I would have been so hard on myself. And
Mm-hmm.
my kick-ass husband was just like, well, oops, I guess I'll learn from that. And we had a laugh and we were going to make it home. It was going to be okay. But
Yeah.
like just changing that and having a laugh together. And my kids were, we got through it, but it wasn't my burden, and
Yeah.
I didn't have to fix anything. I could say, yeah, this sucks, but we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Fine.
I still can hear them hyperventilating. I still think they're like, what? How? No, I'm just going to do the flights, like I'll just do it. How
Yeah.
did you get to that point where you just were like, I'm going to, he's going to do it. I'm letting it go. I'm not doing this anymore.
I think I have so much evidence of when I have relinquished control of my husband stepping up because, like I said, I was doing so much that it was like I was enabling him to just, or right. So he wouldn't do anything. And it was me pushing, I'll just take care of this. I'll just, I'll do everything. And so when I pulled back, he stepped up in a way that I know that he wants to take care of us, and
Mm-hmm.
he always does. And it's not always perfect, but something that I've learned from Laura Doyle in this community is that it can be life lessons. It doesn't have to be wife lessons. And I
Yeah.
was so sick of being that nagging, like teaching him how to do something, reloading the dishwasher, you know what I mean? All the things that I like how I show up so much better now
Yeah.
than I did before. Making all those plans and just being in control of everything, having my hands on everything was
Mm-hmm.
exhausting,
Yeah.
And like that girl that was lighthearted and carefree when I first met my husband, like she was gone for so long and I really like her. She's super fun.
You sound super fun.
Right? Like,
You are so fun. But yes, I
oh,
get it that who is that person now, when you're in the thick
yeah.
of babies and feet up in the air, where all
Right.
your autonomy is gone, it seems.
Yeah. So it was just worth it to me for myself to show up calm and relaxed and have my husband's back.
Yeah.
And it was just worth it to try. And you know what? If it didn't work, if I was freaking out the whole time, I'll change it
Yeah.
next time, you
Right.
know?
Yeah. It's
But
just that
like,
experiment.
like what I focus on increases and the connection that I had those first couple trips with my husband was so different than the past.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, this is where it's at, like just
Yeah.
having that connection across the airport where he looks for me and, holds up a bag of chips to see if I want that kind or the other kind, like
Uh, yeah.
just, just so cute and just receiving that. And it also felt that like bringing up receiving, it felt really feminine too, just to be taken care of, I don't
Yeah.
have to do all this.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, Steph. Well, that sounds so much lighter. That's
Right.
probably an understatement. And even as we're talking about it, like the beginning is like it starts out so heavy, right? Like you're dealing with big things, infertility. So many women I feel can relate to that and that pain and that, just how difficult that is to go through and to feel totally alone in it. Like, husband is off in his own world. He's worried
Yeah.
about what people think, not about, his wife right now. And starting there, but then, we see this whole story progress and there's lots more in the middle, right? But
Yeah.
then get to this point where we're laughing and just talking about the lightness in your relationship now, the fun, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so refreshing to hear, and to have that progression from this is where I was and like this is where I am now. And I feel like if I were listening, I'd be, what was in the middle? Tell me more. And I know you did. You like mentioned some things that you did, like
Mm-hmm.
you used a phrase that was different than anything you'd done before. Instead of, trying to plan out the thing, you just said whatever you referred him back to himself. What do you think? Tell me what
Mm-hmm.
you want to do or what you had in mind, and just having a totally different response. And then, this trip where you're zigzagging across the country, but you are good. You are enjoying the time. What a difference. It's really incredible to hear.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I give you all the credit. You're so welcome, because I know you did that. I know you did that experiment. I want to say I know you did the work, and I know it is work. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
different kind of work, but it's like a work that you get to kind of relax into.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think when you say work, something that comes up for me too was the foundation of these skills is self-care, right?
mhm.
And that is
Yeah.
the skill that I resist the most. So when I really got into this, like being this, I am super efficient and I'm capable and I can get stuff done. And
Yeah.
it would be just like on the bottom of my to-do list, and like you're saying before, taking care of the kids on top of it, I feel like if and then trap also, if I just get this done, then I'll have time for me.
Right.
And I mean, it was before the skills, like I had a hard time looking in the mirror. I had a hard time liking what I saw
Mm,
and really working on as much as relationship coaching for my marriage, like that relationship with myself needed a lot of work.
yeah.
And, like I would like half-ass self-care. I'd be like, oh, I'll dye my hair. And I would get a kit from the grocery store and my hair would be orange,
Mhm.
and I'd be like, oh, well, okay, I tried,
This is life now.
yeah. And like, oh, now I've got to go fix that. And just changing little things. It Self-care was a stretch for me, like going on a girls' trip was not in my radar for a while.
Mhm.
But just, I remember one time being on vacation on the beach, and I would go to the grocery store and I call it vacation creamer for my coffee.
Okay.
And,
Special
like,
treat.
because I would deny myself so much. I would
Yeah.
just, and I love like this vanilla almond, creamer. And I'd be like, oh, yum, I've got my like vacation creamer. And I'd be so happy in the morning. And I was like, this is so dumb. Just buy it every day. Buy it at home.
Yeah.
Stop denying yourself. It sounds so simple, but it was like unlearning something in my brain. It was like retraining that to
Yeah.
be like, it's okay. It's okay to do nice things for yourself.
Yeah.
And it's just it was a journey to get to self-care. And when I did get up to having a girls' weekend, like going mountain biking for 2 days, trusting my husband and leaving, you
Mhm.
know, and
Yeah.
just and there were trips. I remember one of the first trips I went on, I was just like, I almost couldn't enjoy it because I was so worried about what they were doing at home. And like when I left this girls' weekend, I got, a half an hour down the highway and was just already getting resentful because I was like, I know I'm going to walk into a dirty home. I know I'm
Mm.
going to like have to
Yeah.
clean everything up and do all this work. And,
Yeah. Like all the
you know,
relaxation or whatever canceled. The
yeah,
same.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So I had to work on all that too, the resentment and just letting go of expectations and just being grateful for really having that time and making sure I'm filled up and really taking care of myself.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I can like, I hear the journey, like it wasn't just, you start trying things and it's changing things, but it's like this whole process. And I really hear that it was an internal thing too. It was a changing of how you viewed yourself, and what, almost like I'm worth it. I'm worth the fancy creamer that makes me happy in the morning, which, like you said, it sounds so simple, and it's, yeah, like maybe some people would be like, of course, get the creamer you want, but I totally get that, like denying yourself things in the name of the family budget or the martyr, and we don't think of it as being a martyr at the time, right? When we're in it, we're like, I'm sacrificing for my family. Like, this is noble what I'm doing here.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like want to start a club. Can we start the like self-care was a hard skill club, or I don't know. I'm sure we can come up with a better name for it. But I literally skipped over that chapter in the book. I was like, yeah. No, yeah, this is not, I don't need this. I don't like, this is not helpful. This is fluff in this book.
Yeah. Yeah. How'd that go for you? What happened? I'll tell you mine if you tell me yours.
Yeah, I'm like, ugh. Like it took me 6 years to really learn it. Like I didn't even learn it. I tried other things, and then like things would be good, and it was just me in the book for a long time. So, and I didn't even have the book. I literally got it from the library the first time I read it, and I saw some immediate shifts in my mindset, and I noticed some things, and then it was like back to the library, and I was like, okay, I kind of remember this. Like things were just okay, they were good enough. And then we'd have some big life decision come up, like buying a house, and I would just go down this spiral. I talk about that a lot. Just I had this negative spiral that I would go into when my husband did or said something that I just didn't understand or didn't agree with, or just thought he was like coming from a whole other planet that people that don't know how to do life. That's really how it felt. Like he came from the planet of like nannies and I don't know. Yeah. But anyway, what was I even telling you? But yeah, it just extended my journey. Like it wasn't, I had to, that was something I had to work on, and I had to really, I think it went hand in hand with vulnerability for me, because I felt really vulnerable to do anything. Yeah. Like, I can't even say that. I see the duality in all of it, because it was like, I was doing stuff for myself sometimes, but doing it on a regular basis was a huge stretch. Like the daily self-care, the daily filling up was a huge stretch for me. And just the guilt, like it's still there. I still feel it, but I have evidence now that if I do it, I'm going to be better on the other side of it. Like I know how it feels to interact with my husband after I've done the self-care, or how I interact with my kids after I've made that a priority. But yeah, I definitely resist it. And I was just at this thing like this past weekend where a few women mentioned, like somebody actually mentioned this, and we weren't talking, this was just a friend thing. Nobody knows about the skills that we're talking about. And she's self-care is a 4-letter word. I can't even think about it. It is not okay. But it was funny because she was also talking about something that she's doing now. She's like kind of just put everything else to the side, and she's just focusing on this one thing. And I'm like, girl, just keep doing that. Cause it was like a self-care thing, it was something that was healing her. It sounded like to me, like it was something that was bringing her healing. And I don't know if she saw it necessarily as self-care, but I was like, I just related to that so much when she was like, she was like, it's a 4-letter word to do that, and I'm like, yeah, I remember being there. It's not a 4-letter word to me anymore. It's so freeing and beautiful. But even, I mean, like I can get back in those, habits of just doing all the things and like telling myself this makes me feel good.
Yeah. It's weird how our brain does that. Gosh, I just relate to everything you said, and the downward spirals and getting stuck in that, and just the resisting self-care. I feel like I would have these wins, these successes with the skills, and then be hitting speed bumps. It was like I could only get this far because I wasn't doing self-care. And it
Right.
was like during relationship coach training. Like I had the book and was doing that for years. And then I went into relationship coach training. And it wasn't until I was almost done with that that I really, changed up my self-care. And I constantly have to do it. It's a skill that I need to change and check in on and, be accountable a lot.
Yeah.
So, man, I so get that.
And it evolves too. Like I found that it evolves in some stuff that I was really experimenting with self-care in the beginning too. Cause I was like, I don't even know what would make me ridiculously happy. That just sounded weird to me too. There isn't anything. Like I really felt that way. There's nothing that makes me just like on cloud nine. And so I was like, well, I used to like dance. So like maybe I'm going to commit. I'm going to go back to dancing. And that was really good for me, but it wasn't self-care at first because I took this body that hadn't danced in 15 or 20 years and was trying to do things, And so that became more of just a mental exercise for me to, oh, I hate myself right now. Oh, I hate my body right now. Oh, I hate the way I look in the mirror, but I'm going to keep going. And I would come home from it miserable some nights. Like, I hate it. I can't go back. But it was like this experiment. And, eventually after doing it long enough or going there and having a really great song play and just relax into it. And I'd be like, oh, I love this. It was a process to get back to this point where it brought me a lot of joy. So anyway, self-care can be a journey, I guess, is away from that. Yeah.
Dancing. Yeah. After you've been out of it for 15 or 20 years, I could just imagine just having an expectation of myself that like, I did this for a long time. I should be good at this. I should be able to just, just like riding a bike. Yeah. That's challenging, but finding
I wasn't that good. Like I hadn't done it that much. It was like one of those like childhood dreams. So I would have loved to dance more, but like we couldn't. Like there was just, so I did other things, that kind of scratched that itch. And then when I went to college, like I tried to take a class or two every semester, so I had the foundation, but I was also with it's quite a mix in the class that I was going to, but there were some dancers, and so it was. Anyway, that's a story for another day. But yeah, it was like an experimental thing though. I'm like, I love dancing. So let's try it. And at first it was rough, but yeah, it was really good. I love going now and being able to look in the mirror and say, I like where I'm at. Look at where I came from. And it is more self-care now. Like I can go to dance and I'm just like so relaxed. But at first I couldn't relax because I was so up in my head. I had needless emotional turmoil.
Right. Totally.
But like you said, it's experimenting. I'm the expert. And it was something that I was like, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to see how it goes, and I kept it up and we do a dance performance at the end of the year. It's like a big thing where it's like downtown, it's in this big theater. And so this is the year that I did coach training. So I'm like, all right, I got to practice.
Brenda.
Yeah. So I'm like, I got to practice these skills, right? So I'm going to do dance. And so I was doing dance and I get to the end of the year where we're doing this performance. I'm only in 3 dances. A lot of girls are in like 8 to 10, but I'd worked, really hard. And I got to that point and I did that performance and I had so much fun hanging out with all the girls. Like we were kind of the ones with fewer dances. We were like in the basement, like that's our getting ready area. So I was just like hanging out with people. I was part of something and it was so fun. Like we did the performance and it ended and like looking back, I'm like, okay, the whole year getting up there was just this mental, physical battle, but I did that and that was fun. And I was like, okay, I want to keep doing this.
Props to you. Oh my gosh. That's so brave on top of it, oh gosh.
Yeah, it was crazy. It is crazy. And it's still, I love it now. And I feel like I'm a part of the community. I'm a part of,
cool.
And that was something that was really missing too from my life was just people.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point. I think I would confuse some self-cares or maybe I think I've manipulated every single skill.
Yeah.
But like self-care, I'd be like, well, I love solitude. And I know a lot of moms can relate to that. But what would happen for me would be I would isolate myself, and it would turn into sort of like just isolating myself and not having much contact with other people. And it made me a little prickly,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. I know for me too, coming out of it, it was like what is that called? Sensory overload to go from my solitude space to not anymore. So it was like good feeling gone, like as soon as
Like quills out. I'm nervous.
yes, yeah. Like I always think we say it all the time, like that there's a scene in Nemo, Finding Nemo, where like
Uh-huh.
they're like going along, they're all happy, and then Marlin's good feeling gone, and we say it in our house. But yeah, I was like, yeah, I love solitude too. But yeah, if the second I get back into real life, it's gone, then it's okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I should look at that and see, you know, evaluate it. And that's one of the biggest things for me was just that space to like evaluate what was going on inside of me.
Yeah.
And to kind of take the focus off my husband for a minute. Cause he was he was the reason, at least in my mind back then, that all of this stuff was coming up for me, why I was upset, why it was the things he said or did or didn't do that was causing me the turmoil. And so having the space to just look at it and to experiment with things like going on a girls trip and just seeing how I feel, how do I feel right now? What do I want? And sometimes it was like, I kind of want to be with my family right now, which was weird because I had been with them so much. I didn't even have that. So it's for me, it's just been full circle to where I just wanted to get away all the time and I couldn't. I didn't know how. I just didn't know how to leave ever, just even for something small, to where now I can leave and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like I need to leave all the time, or I don't want to leave all the time because I get all the solitude I need, or I get, getting those outside experiences with other women. And one of the things that I thought about when we were talking about that was like, it's like a daily thing though. It's not like the girls trips are awesome. So fun. And
Right.
they fill you up. But it's for me, it's also like this daily thing. So I have really good friends that, I talk to on occasion, but like dance for me was like every week, once a week or twice a week, I'm going and I'm interacting with people, like it was like a constant practice. It wasn't just like a one hit wonder, I guess.
Yeah. No, I totally relate to that. And just, kudos to you for changing things up so much and taking that pause to actually think about your feelings. That was really hard for me because like we were talking about before, I would just shove everything down. And unlike you, I was like a soda can. When you would shake it up enough, like I would explode.
Yeah.
And just taking the time to process, just to like, how do I feel? What do I want? Why am I so angry right now? What's really going on? Was a huge shift for me. And I know like even the social self-care, yesterday I had lunch with a girlfriend. We just had some tacos and shared some fried ice cream. And by the time I got home, I was able to take my dog for a quick walk. But by the time the kids got off the school bus, like I was there, I was present, and I was excited to see them. Where there were a lot of days where I'd be like, the bus is coming. But like I had enough. I used to think that if I did that, go and have lunch, I would be too burnt out to show up for my kids. Like somehow, even though I'd gone for a 5-mile run, like it just, things were not, I just wasn't checking in with myself. And so last night, like I was able to make cookies with my daughter, and my son, went on a bunny hunt with my husband, and, we were able to, come back together and have a good time and, watch a little bit of Spider-Man last night. Like it was just nice. And you're exactly what you're saying. Like I was exactly where I wanted to be.
Yeah.
What an amazing feeling.
Yeah. So refreshing. It's so refreshing to even like when you say it, and I totally get like that. The kids are home. It's like, no, but then like I heard from you, bring it on, that's how it feels for me when I'm filled up on self-care. I'm like, bring it on. I'm ready, let's do this. And I loved how you described your last night, like your husband's doing something with one of the kids. You've divided and conquered. It's not just you and the 2 kids anymore. And you're doing something. I mean, that's I'm like thinking like how I have a hard time like cooking with my kids. And I'm like, oh, I want to be that mom. I want to have that but I can't because I just want to all up in it. And they're doing everything wrong and I can't do it. So it's something that I'm working on too, but I feel like when I'm full of self-care, like if it was gonna happen, those are the moments that it could happen in,
Right.
The only way that it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I get that too. And there are the times where like I check in and I'm like, this is not the right day to bake cookies. This is not a good day to do that. And you can have extra screen time tonight, like I put so much pressure on, once again, like how this should look, that it was costing me the connection with my kids, with my husband, because it's supposed to look like this. And I was showing up just resentful and didn't want to be there. There are times, Brenda, where no, I really don't want to read a book tonight. I really just don't want to do it. And saying I can't to my kids was hard. And saying that to my husband, because I can do it, but I'm not going to be happy about it.
Right.
And it's, you know what I mean? Like it's finding a balance with that and pausing and really asking myself and just being real honest.
Yeah, no, I love that so much because somebody was telling me this the other day, the 3 indicators of a successful family or whatever, good outcomes for teenagers or adult children or whatever are like reading with them, family dinner, and some other thing. But to have that become an expectation and to have all that pressure on yourself. Okay, well, if I don't go read the story tonight, what's going to happen? Fear, right? Like you have somebody else has already told you, the research has been done, like these are simple things, but being able to, this is not a cookie baking night, and knowing that about yourself, I feel like that is what gives you the power to be able to do the cookie baking night, on the right night. So it's just really powerful. Well, we've been at this for an hour now, and I feel like it's chocked full, like so much good stuff in here. Yeah. But what if you were just to tell somebody how would you start if you're like, if they're hearing your story and they're being like, hey, that sounds awesome. Or maybe even that sounds too good to be true. And they're curious and they're like, is it too good to be true? What would you like? Where would you point them or what would you suggest that they do?
Oh, it's so loaded. I want to give everything, right?
Right. Yeah. You've already given so much, so no pressure. You really have. Sharing your story is so beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. I think to anybody who's curious, I would invite them to experiment, especially with self-care, with experimenting. That would be my first step. And instead of blowing past it like I did, like we both did, I change the perspectives on it a little bit. This could be the most fun homework you will ever have in your life. Like this has the possibility of you becoming ridiculously happy or whatever your vision is. And that vision can change. But I would really get in touch with you, get off anybody else's page and just figure out what makes you smile. I think that was just a huge change for me. Just instead of having the expectations on a date night or whatever else it was, like when my husband comes home, I might still be in my long johns from skiing. The other night I was wearing onion goggles when my husband came home and I was chopping onions with a beanie on and my ski socks on still and slippers. And I was smiling and my kids were dancing. And asking Alexa random questions and whatnot. But he walked in and we stopped and we hugged. And having that smile on my face makes all the difference.
Yeah. I love that. I love too. And you created it. It wasn't like, I'm going to slap this smile on when he walks through the door. It was like, no, I'm like, it sounds like you were just genuinely happy doing your thing. Yeah. Love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. And this has been so fun. I want to do it some more. So let's get you back here. Thank you so much, Stephanie, for coming on the show, for being willing to share something so vulnerable and so raw and then to show how, what you did different and how it is now, because it sounds really awesome. Like I feel really inspired. I'm like, all right, I got to recommit to like my daily self-care and what really brings me joy. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Brenda. Yeah, you're welcome.